A man went to the hospital for cancer removal surgery, only to realize it was already too late. The cancer cells had long spread throughout his body, but the man, upon learning the truth, was not the least bit angry. Instead, he clutched the safety charm his wife had left behind, and burst into laughter, because in his view, only this death that wouldn't cut off his line could prove to his wife's departed soul. Once again, what he saw was the dusty red double happiness sticker on the window of his hometown. He searched frantically inside and outside the house, finally saw Zhou Yao, completely naked, curled up on the cold earthen bed. Her big eyes were filled only with deathly stillness. Her originally fair and flawless body was covered with crisscrossing scars. Once again, seeing this woman who had haunted his dreams for half his life, the man's eyes instantly reddened. He rushed forward and pulled her tightly into his arms, all his guilt and longing stuck in his throat, finally turning into uncontrollable sobs of grievance. In his previous life, he had deliberately caused Zhou Yao to fall into the water, making the whole village see her naked, the daughter he had saved. To protect her reputation, Zhou Yao was forced to marry him, but ever since she entered his house, Zhou Yao never had a single good day. She suffered endless torment from his relentless domestic violence. In the end, Zhou Yao, holding her young child, jumped into the reservoir. Not until her elder brother pulled the mother and daughter's bodies out of the river did this man finally wake up. Later in life, riding the wave of the times, he earned more wealth than 10 lifetimes could spend. But the woman who taught him to grow with her life would never return, as he was immersed in the ecstasy of rebirth. Ah, get away. Don't touch me, my baby. Suddenly a woman's piercing cries came from inside. Seeing Zhou Yao trembling uncontrollably, he suddenly remembered that just the day before, he had snatched the money Zhou Yao had borrowed from her parents to buy rice for the child, and spent it all on 9 bottles of liquor. Thinking of this, he raised his hand and slapped himself hard more than a dozen times. Blood soon trickled down from the corner of his mouth. Zhou Yao watched coldly, a mocking smile curling at the corner of her mouth. She had lost count of how many times this was, because every time he sobered up, he would kneel and beg for forgiveness. But within 2 days, his fists and feet would land on her again. She could bear the humiliation of being tortured in bed, but she couldn't stand the child being so hungry he couldn't even get a sip of milk. The child's weak cries finally brought a spark of life back to Zhou Yao's dead phoenix eyes. She frantically threw on some clothes and scooped up her wailing daughter. Due to long-term malnutrition, Zhou Yao had no breast milk at all. That's why the child kept crying from hunger. The daughter's cries also instantly jolted him awake. He immediately got out of bed and picked up the clothes on the floor. Wife, wait here. I'll go get some food for our girl right now. With those words, he strode out toward the village convenience store. Old Huang at the store saw him, grinned with his yellow teeth and asked, "What liquor this time?" "Uncle Huang, can I get some baby rice cereal on credit? I'll pay you tomorrow." Old Huang heard he wanted to put it on credit again, looked at the red slap marks on his face, said nothing, turned around, took a bag of baby cereal from the shelf, and handed it to him. He thanked him profusely, gripped the baby cereal and hurried home. But as soon as he entered and saw his wife still huddled in the corner, his heart ached with a sharp pang again. "Wife, I bought the baby cereal. I warn you, don't you dare sell my daughter, or I'll curse your Zhang family to die without descendants." Hearing this, he froze on the spot. He suddenly remembered that in his previous life, he had indeed planned to sell his daughter to someone in town for liquor money. He cursed himself in his heart. "What a bastard thing I did. No wonder I ended up like that in my past life. Serves me right." He quickly took the baby cereal from his hand, gently placed it on the shabby little bed. "I swear I'll never sell our girl. Tomorrow I'll go to town and look for work." With that, he turned and walked out of the room. Once in the yard, he slapped himself hard a few more times. He clearly remembered that Zhou Yao had jumped into the water with their daughter this very month. The thought alone made him tremble uncontrollably, seeing that it was getting late, and the house had long run out of food. 20 minutes later, he appeared at the foot of the mountain behind the village. He ripped the elastic band from his shorts, made a simple slingshot, and with a stone, he hit a turtle dove that flapped its wings and flew up. After becoming rich in his previous life, he had gotten into shooting sports, and was also very skilled with a slingshot. He crouched in the grass for a while, and caught a fat pheasant with a net bag. Then he shot 4 turtle doves with his slingshot. The 4 turtle doves weighed only about a pound or 2. That pheasant weighed a good 5 pounds. He tied the game with vines, hung it on a branch and prepared to carry it home on his shoulder, but suddenly realized the thing behind him was gone. He broke out in a cold sweat, thinking he had encountered something unclean. Just then, he saw the safety charm hanging on his chest suddenly flash faintly. This safety charm was something Zhou Yao had always kept on her in the previous life, until just before she jumped into the river. She took it off and threw it by the reservoir. When he looked again, the light of the safety charm had disappeared. He couldn't help reaching out to touch it. The next second, he found himself in a strange space. This space wasn't even as big as the hospital room he had in his previous life. After several attempts, he understood that holding the safety charm let him enter the space, and thinking about getting out brought him back to reality. With this golden finger, he knew he could make a comeback in this life. On his way home, He saw that many households in the village had electricity, while his own house still used dim sheep fat lamps. Even the hardest years of natural disasters had passed, yet his family still didn't know where their next meal would come from. He carried the game straight into the kitchen. When it was completely dark, he brought a large bowl of turtle dove soup into the main room. Yao Yao, time to eat. I made turtle dove soup to help you produce milk. He called out 3 times, before Yao Yao slowly came out from the bedroom. Seeing the large bowl of turtle dove soup on the table, she didn't come any closer, just stood there, her eyes filled with deep, unyielding hatred. Looking at his wife's old clothes full of patches, his heart ached again. In this era of material scarcity, Zhou Yao's appearance was still strikingly beautiful. But this bastard, he had married her, yet had no idea how to cherish her. Seeing how guarded she was, he knew clearly that as long as he was there, she definitely wouldn't touch her chopsticks. Go eat in the kitchen, he said, then turned and walked out. Yao Yao stood there stunned, staring at the bowl full of turtle dove meat soup. Is this a dream? Or is this my last meal before death? In the past, whenever there was a bite of food in the house, he would fill himself up first, and she could only drink the pot scrubbing water. So now, even though she was starving, Zhu Yao didn't dare to take a bite easily, until she walked to the door, and saw him squatting under the window drinking soup. There was also a fat pheasant hanging by the kitchen door. She finally guessed that he must have gone up the mountain to hunt. Zhu Yao finally turned back into the main room, picked up the bowl and ate slowly. After she finished eating, he, under her wary gaze, took care of washing all the dishes. In the past, he had been a complete lazy bum. This was probably the first time in this house he had earned his keep. After finishing the housework, thinking about the bastard things he had done during the day, he went and boiled a pot of hot water, then carried it into the room. Yao Yao, use this water to wash yourself. With that, he put down the basin and hurried out. He sat by the door and waited. After a long while, the faint sound of splashing water came from inside. He looked up at the starry sky, planning in his mind how to make money tomorrow. He had to improve the family's situation as soon as possible. It was already autumn and winter. The temperature dropped to minus 20 degrees, freezing water instantly. His wife and child both needed padded cotton clothes. Otherwise, this winter, they wouldn't survive. Hearing that the water sound inside had stopped, he got up and went into the room. Seeing him suddenly appear, Zhou Yao shrank back repeatedly. Don't come near me. Seeing this, he silently cursed his past beastly behavior, and understood that her knot wouldn't be undone anytime soon. So he softened his tone and reminded her, wife, I'm only coming in to take the basin out. With that, he picked up the basin from the floor and walked out. Zhou Yao ignored him. As soon as he was out the door, she quickly dressed. In the yard, he used the hot water his wife had used to wash himself quickly. After all, to catch those turtle doves, he had lain in the grass for most of the day. After washing, he sat on the doorstep, recalling all kinds of experiences from his previous life. He remembered that in his past life, a few outsiders always wanted to go into the mountains to collect things. Afraid of getting lost, they asked him, who had nothing better to do, to guide them. At that time, he thought these city people had too much time on their hands. But after following them a few times, he also learned the tricks of digging wild dendrobium. Now, he could completely rely on digging wild dendrobium to make money. Thinking of this, he suddenly perked up. He immediately tied a torch, prepared some crude tools, and called out to the house, Yao Yao, lock the door. I'm going out for a while. Once out, he stayed in the mountains the entire night, not returning until 4 a.m. And luck was with him. Coming down the mountain, he accidentally discovered a den of mass palm civets, and caught a few that still had their eyes closed. Back home, he quickly processed the game, left one in the kitchen, and carried 2 baskets to town. It was market day in town. He found a crowded spot, and took the civet meat and skins out of the baskets. Young man, these mountain goods are pretty good. He had initially thought if he couldn't sell them, he would just take them home and stew them all, sharing some with eldest brother, second brother, and third sister's families. But he didn't expect that as soon as he laid out the goods, someone came up to ask. An old couple, seeing how tanned he was, obviously from the mountains, and the prices were reasonable, bought 2 on the spot. In those days, eating meat required coupons. Only this kind of mountain goods without coupons could be traded freely. The old lady said she wanted to take them home for her little grandson to try. As she was leaving, she even tugged at the old man's clothes, and had him buy all the civet skins too, saying she wanted to make gloves for the little grandson. And so, in less than 2 hours, all the civets were sold out. Then he took the wild dendrobium he had picked the day before, and went to the town's old pharmacy. The moment he took out the wild dendrobium, the old shopkeeper, wearing thick glasses, his eyes immediately lit up. The old shopkeeper carefully took the dendrobium, examined it closely for a long time, then held up a number of fingers to him. Young brother, this price ... Seeing the price he offered, he frowned slightly. This guy was trying to cheat him like a hillbilly. So he reached out to take back his goods. Seeing this, the old man grabbed his hand, stroked his goatee and soothed, "If you're not satisfied with the price, we can negotiate, right? 6 big bills. Can't go higher." Although this big piece had been accidentally stepped on and broken, its value was far more than this. But who needed money urgently? His wife and child were still hungry at home. After thinking for a moment, he decided to sell. Then he went to buy meat and flour. He visited to state-run shops. Before he could buy the rare powdered milk of that era, on his way back, he thought of his wife and the patched old clothes she had on yesterday. So he stepped into the only small state-run department store in town. On the way home, he took a detour and went to see an old hunter over 70, gave him a bunch of food, and only then traded for the old hunter's precious hunting rifle. In those days, eating meat required coupons. To have the freedom to eat meat, you still had to do it yourself. When he was almost home, he noticed Zhou Yao working in the fields with their child on her back. When his older brother Zhao Zhengxing saw him coming, he immediately flared up. "Where the hell have you been? Making your wife work in the fields alone?" "I went to town to work, and I bought some meat and flour on the way. Bring your wife and kids over tonight for dinner." Looking at his elder brother, his nose stung with emotion. Hearing this, his brother looked him up and down suspiciously, noticing the mud spots on his pant legs. And then at the full baskets. "Your sister-in-law just steamed a pot of cornmeal buns at noon. Tell your wife to come get some later. Treat your sister-in-law well from now on." So he didn't say anything more, nodded, and carried the stuff back home. To win over his wife, he first had to win over her stomach. So he started busying himself in the kitchen. By the time it was almost dark, Zhou Yao came home with a few cornmeal buns in her pocket. But as soon as she entered the yard, she smelled the aroma of meat from the kitchen. So she quickly went to the kitchen door and saw him busy at the simple stove. Zhou Yao, after working all day, was starving. She put the cornmeal buns down and went into the bedroom, laid the sleeping baby on the small bed. But when she turned around and saw a can of powdered milk on the table, Zhou Yao's blood rushed to her head. She ran into the kitchen, raised her hand, and slapped him. "Did you go threaten my mother for money again? How can you be such a bastard?" When his wife suddenly brought this up, he slowly remembered what a scumbag he was. He had indeed threatened his mother-in-law with a knife for money before, so he quickly denied it. "No, I didn't. I earned this money today." As he said that, he reached into his crotch. Seeing this, Zhou Yao got even angrier. She came up and slapped him again. "What times are these? And you're still thinking about that?" After 2 slaps in a row, he was left speechless, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Seeing that Zhou Yao wasn't stopping, he hurriedly pulled out the 5 big unity notes stuffed in his crotch. "Wife, this is the money I earned today. You keep it." Zhou Yao saw the notes forcibly stuffed into her hand and felt dizzy. Seeing his wife about to fall, he reached out to support her, but Zhou Yao slapped his hand away hard. She couldn't believe that a good-for-nothing like him could earn so much money in a single day. What kind of shady business had he been doing outside? What should we do? This life is really impossible. Seeing that Zhou Yao absolutely didn't believe him, he almost knelt down. "Last night I went up the mountain and picked some wild dendrobium, and happened to find a civet den. I traded those things for 6 big notes. I spent 1 note on food, and this is all that's left." When she heard dendrobium, Zhou Yao's eyes finally showed a trace of life. Ginseng in the north, dendrobium in the south. That stuff is valuable in medicine and can be sold for money. But it all grows deep in the mountains, very hard to find, especially in the pitch dark. But on second thought, there had indeed been bloodstains by the well that morning, and there was civet meat stewing in the pot. Could she have wronged him? But how would he know about dendrobium? Under Zhou Yao's gaze, he raised his right hand and swore, "I truly didn't do anything bad. If I did, may I die without descendants." Seeing that her breathing had steadied, and her eyes weren't so fierce, he breathed a sigh of relief. "Yao Yao, put the money away quickly. I'm going to take some meat to my brother's house. Let them have a taste too." Although it was safer to hide the money in the space, giving the money to his wife meant handing over the family's authority. Then he picked up a plate of stir-fried civet meat, and a bowl of stewed Crucian carp and tofu soup, put them on the table in the main room, then went back to the kitchen and filled a bowl full of meat, and headed toward his elder brother's house. On the way, he also paid back old Huang the money for the baby cereal and the liquor he owed before. Meanwhile, Zhou Yao was staring at the big notes in her hand, then hurried back into the room. In more than 2 years of marriage, it had always been him squeezing money out of her. This was the first time he had voluntarily handed over money. So she split the notes into 5 parts and hid them separately. After doing that, she heard steady footsteps outside. She came out of the room and saw the steaming table full of dishes. For a moment, she was dazed. Then she went to the kitchen and took a look. The flour jar was more than half full. The oil jar was also full. Hanging from the beam was a strip of pork belly weighing over 10 pounds. Has he really changed? At this moment, Zhou Yao wasn't sure. After all, a dog can't change its habit of eating shit. Seeing Zhou Yao sit down, he put a pheasant leg into her bowl. "I'll go up the mountain early tomorrow morning. Before winter comes, I want to scout all the places where I can dig dendrobium. After all, that's the fastest way to make money right now." Once the country opens up, we'll use the money to invest in other things. Hearing his words, Zhou Yao was stunned for a moment, then nodded, and said nothing. He had been incredibly lucky last night, stumbling upon a piece of dendrobium, but he couldn't be that lucky every time. Zhou Yao wanted to remind him that if he really wanted to earn money, he should find a job. Even if it was just a few dimes a day, it was better than no income, but considering his temperament, as long as he didn't go out and gamble or drink, she would just let him be. She picked up her chopsticks, about to put the pheasant leg back into his bowl, but he saw her doing that, and quickly used the child as an excuse to stop her. Wife, you're too thin. Eat more, or the baby won't have any milk. No matter how good the formula is, it can't beat breast milk, and formula is expensive and hard to buy. This is crucian carp and tofu soup. Drinking it will help you produce milk. These words made Zhou Yao glare at him, her knuckles white as she gripped the chopsticks. But she didn't refuse. He had been at it for a day and a night, exhausted and sleepy. But at least the family's livelihood was settled for now. After filling his stomach, he simply said, "Wife, I'm going to sleep first." With that, he got up, bent down, and went into the inner room, fell onto the bed and was soon asleep. When Zhou Yao finished washing the dishes and returned to the room, she saw the clothes he had taken off on the floor, frowned, then picked them up and, in the moonlight, washed them. After all that, she dragged her tired body into the bedroom. Her foot accidentally kicked a basket. Zhou Yao picked it up and saw that it contained a brand new set of women's clothes, and 3 sets of baby clothes. She stared at the sleeping youth for a long time. "I don't understand this person anymore. You slept like the dead, deeply and soundly. Even though your daughter woke up twice during the night, still couldn't wake you up, until early morning. You finally opened your eyes gradually, turned over, saw Zhou Yao curled up, back facing you. At that time, he only wore a worn-out little vest, made you swallow your saliva. After all, after Zhou Yao died in your previous life, you had looked for other women, so you reached out and pulled him into your arms. Everything felt as unreal as a dream. Just as you were about to lower your head and kiss him, the wife in your arms suddenly went stiff, clearly very resistant to your touch, so you forced down the bitterness in your heart, turned over and got out of bed. For now, you just had to endure. Took down the clean clothes from the clothesline, not caring that they weren't dry. You quickly put them on, then tiptoed and carefully took the basket, took out the things from the basket, put them on the table. At that moment, Zhou Yao sat up in bed. With a cold face, he said to you, "If you really want to change, then find a job. As long as you're willing to work hard, you can earn over 10 yuan a month, and our family can get by." Hearing your wife talk to you willingly, your heart rejoiced, knowing that Zhou Yao was thinking of you. But heaven had given you a chance to live again. You had to, when the full liberalization came, save up enough startup capital. In the previous life, after they mother and daughter left, you were like a homeless dog, wandering outside for some days. Later, you met a benefactor, and got a chance to work as a server in a state-owned store. Because you had a sweet tongue and knew how to talk, gradually, you were promoted to manager, and therefore had the chance to cross social classes, and get in touch with those big shots. In this life, you wanted to earn your first pot of gold as soon as possible with your own hands. So hunting and collecting dendrobium was the fastest way to make money now. More importantly, you now had the memories of your previous life, and knew where the dendrobium was. How could you let such a good opportunity slip by? But for now, you didn't know how to explain to your wife why you insisted on going up the mountain to dig for dendrobium. Seeing you stay silent for a long time, Zhou Yao knew you were being stubborn, so he simply pulled up the quilt and lay back down. In the kitchen, there was still cornmeal left for you in the pot. Hearing that, you saw his face full of unconcealed joy. Then you came to the bedside and kissed Zhou Yao on the cheek. "Wife, I talked it over with our elder brother yesterday. You don't need to go help them today. The pork in the kitchen. When you have time, send half of it to my mother-in-law." And Zhou Yao, when you got close, thought you were angry and about to hit him, but didn't expect you to ambush him with a kiss. He didn't catch what you said, nor did he see you kiss your daughter before leaving. By the time he came to his senses, you were long gone. In the dim room, only he and his daughter sleeping in the small bed remained. Though it was still early, he tossed and turned, and simply couldn't fall asleep again. He lay in bed until the sun was high in the sky. Then he heard someone knocking outside. "Second sister-in-law, what brings you here so early?" "Fourth brother's wife. I heard from big sister-in-law that your family had meat last night." Liu Gihua's eyes darted into the kitchen, smiling so earnestly. She said, without waiting for a reply. Her feet seemed to have eyes, headed straight for the kitchen door. "Oh my goodness. Could fourth brother have stolen or robbed something? That big piece of meat must have cost a fortune." They hadn't seen any meat in nearly half a year. The kid had been crying for it for days, but they couldn't bear to buy any. Finally tearing her eyes away, she caught sight of the dark wall. There was actually half a pheasant hanging. She immediately got agitated. "Fourth brother's family. You need to keep an eye on your man. If he's gambling, he might end up in jail." Hearing this, Zhou Yao, his face darkened bit by bit. "Second sister-in-law, what nonsense are you talking? If he breaks the law, the police will catch him. You don't need to worry about that." With that, Liu Gihua wanted to say more, but her eyes rolled, as if an idea struck her. She swallowed the words that were on the tip of her tongue. Don't be mad at me, second sister-in-law. I'm just worried about our fourth brother. My man is his own brother. My little Bao is crying for meat. He's been craving it. Can you lend me 5 caddies of meat for now? I'll have your second brother bring you the money later. After more than 2 years of living together, Zhou Yao saw through her like a mirror. He had long known what kind of person this second sister-in-law was. Once something entered her house, it was like a meat bun thrown at a dog never coming back, opening her mouth for 5 caddies of meat, not to mention that he didn't dare make such a decision. Even if he had the authority, it wouldn't happen. I can't decide on something this big. Second sister-in-law, wait for fourth brother to come back and talk to him. With that, he walked over and latched the kitchen door. Seeing his attitude, Li Diehua was very displeased. Alright, when fourth brother comes back, remember to tell him to bring the meat to our house, as she turned to leave. The smile on Li Dihua's face couldn't hold. On this side of the mountain, it was almost dusk, relying on the memories of your previous life. You had a hard time finding a wild dendrobium plant. With the experience from groping in the dark yesterday, when most of the roots of the dendrobium were exposed, it was already. This one was bigger than yesterday's. Much bigger. It was almost dark. Before you carefully took that big one completely out, just as you were about to go down the mountain and head home, you turned and bumped into a cicadere. It looked like it had come to eat the dendrobium. It was strong. You quickly took out the hunting rifle you exchanged yesterday from your space. In a moment, the gunshot exploded in the forest, scaring the birds into scattering. Back home, Zhou Yao had finished cooking. After warming up milk powder for his daughter, you still hadn't returned. He frowned. Where could he find a master that easily? He still needs to buckle down and learn a trade properly. While Zhou Yao was lost in thought, you quietly walked into the yard. Only when you took out the things from the basket did Zhou Yao inside the house hear the noise. He came out holding the daughter. Wash your hands and eat. After saying that, he went back inside with the daughter. You noticed that your wife glanced into the basket, but didn't say anything. When you entered the house, you saw steaming hot dishes on the table. Your eyes warmed. You wished you could go back to the previous life and slap yourself to death. Such a beautiful and virtuous wife. Why didn't you cherish her properly? You walked to the table and sat down, gobbling down the food. Wife, I'm going to the village head's place later. In the next few days, let's get the electric wires connected to our home. But we'll have to pay the electricity bill every month from now on. After saying that, he sneaked a peek at you, afraid of pissing you off and you flipping the table. You keenly caught Zhou Yao's expression, then put down your chopsticks, went to the door, and brought the basket into the house. Wife, this is what I dug up today. I'll sell it at the pharmacy in town another day. It should fetch a good price. Zhou Yao stared fixedly at the wild dendrobium, lifted his eyes to look at you, and asked in an incredulous tone, did you really dig this? I swear I didn't steal or rob. This is the result of a whole day's digging in the mountains. Seeing your calm face, Zhou Yao nodded doubtfully. Our second sister-in-law came by during the day. She wants to borrow 5 caddies of pork. Seeing Zhou Yao's long face, clearly unhappy, you guessed that since you weren't home, second sister-in-law had given him a hard time. So you said with a serious face, you're in charge of this family from now on. The money and things are all under your management. If you don't want to lend, then we don't lend. Your words made Zhou Yao's heart sink. He thought for a long while, then said with anger, I don't want to lend. Second sister-in-law says she's borrowing, but she definitely won't pay it back. This isn't the first time she's borrowed our stuff and not returned it. Hearing Zhou Yao's words, a gratified smile appeared on your face. You lovingly pinched his nose. Your smile stunned Zhou Yao. Then he picked up his daughter and went to the other room. As for you, after filling your stomach, you washed the dishes, then cut half a caddy of meat and went out in the dark. Village head Wang Shuangguan saw it was you. His dark, wrinkled face froze. Then, when he saw the meat in your hand, his wrinkled face broke into a big smile. He asked as he took the meat from you. Jiao-kun, what brings you here so late? I want to get electricity set up at home. Can you help arrange it when you're free? I'll arrange it for you tomorrow. Thank you. That's troublesome. Hearing that, you didn't linger. Got up, thanked him, and turned to leave. But when you passed the kitchen, you saw Zhou Yao in the dark kitchen, gnawing on the leftover meat bones you had discarded. This sight stabbed your eyes with pain. Your blood seemed to freeze. Then you asked hoarsely, what are you doing? Hearing your voice, Zhou Yao was startled. The bone he was chewing dropped to the ground. He looked at you in the yard with terrified eyes. Don't hit me. These are just the leftovers you didn't finish. I just thought it was a waste to throw away. At that moment, you felt thunderstruck, never so defeated in your life. Then with a thud, you knelt before him. Zhou Yao screamed in fear. What do you want? Zhou Yao's eyes lowered, looking at the man kneeling before him, until he felt wet warmth on his chest. He was actually crying. His long-sealed heart seemed to crack a little, and seeing his wife terrified at eating his leftovers, like a knife stabbing into your heart, you stood up from the ground, cupped your wife's fair cheeks, lowered your head and kissed away the tear at the corner of his eye. Wife, go wait in the main room. I'll bring the food in when it's ready. You are my great benefactor. Zhou Yao didn't understand that sentence, blushed, and slipped out of the kitchen as if seeing a ghost. In the kitchen, you busied around, and in a short while, a fragrant plate of stir-fried meat slices came out of the pan. He thought the coarse grain buns were scratchy on the throat, but his wife treasured them, not willing to eat a single bite. Just as you entered the other room, your wife's slender back came into view. In an instant, your heart surged with warmth. You stepped forward and pulled him into your arms from behind. In the embrace, Zhou Yao felt for the first time how reassuring and safe it was to be cherished. This was the first time since their wedding night that the two cuddled and slept peacefully through the night. Thinking of the intimacy between them last night, Zhou Yao's cheeks burned slightly. When he turned his face and saw the child in the small bed, Zhou Yao's face went pale with fear. Didn't the daughter cry all night last night? Seeing his wife suddenly change, eyes fixed on the daughter's side, you quickly got out of bed, darted to the daughter's small bed in a few steps, saw the daughter was already awake, staring with big eyes and smiling. At that moment, looking at your daughter, your heart softened. You carefully picked up your daughter and held her in your arms. Returned to the bedside, seeing that the daughter was fine and smiling. Zhou Yao's heavy heart finally settled. His tense nerves relaxed. Then his eyes reddened, almost crying. He regretted sleeping so soundly last night. Such a little child, if something had happened. How could I live on? Wife, you lie down with Yu a while longer. I'll make you breakfast. Zhou Yao checked the diaper under the daughter's bottom, though not wrapped very neatly. It was clean and changed. No wonder he hadn't heard the daughter cry last night. So it was this bastard who got up to take care of the child. This was the first time since the child was born that he had voluntarily taken care of the baby. So, had he really changed? Could she trust him again? On the other side, you were busily working in the kitchen. By the time your wife came out holding the child, the food was ready: tofu, small greens, cornmeal porridge, and coarse grain buns. You, shirtless, took the child from Zhou Yao's arms. Wife, go wash up first. Zhou Yao was a bit uneasy, but seeing you holding the little one so clumsily, he couldn't help but chuckle. She's your own daughter, not a tiger. Can she bite you? During the meal, village head Wang Shuangguan brought the electrician into the yard. He saw Zhou Yao sitting at the table in the yard eating, while you, shirtless and holding the child, strolled around the yard. He noticed a neat row of teeth marks on the inside of your arm, and smiled meaningfully. Jiao-kun, haven't finished your meal yet. You didn't expect Wang Shuangguan to bring them in so early. So you led the village head and the electrician to the gate outside the yard, and chatted until Zhou Yao finished eating and went back inside. Only then did you hand the child to your wife, and from the pocket of your loose shorts, pulled out a pack of Daqian Men cigarettes. The village head looked at the Daqian Men in his hand, grinned with yellow teeth and said, "You little rascal, you're doing well. A pack of these costs for Mao, you know." The electrician beside him smiled even more warmly, tucked the cigarette behind his ear, and carried a ladder around to the back of the house. "This job is worth it. A 4 Mao pack of cigarettes, I'd never spend that on myself. This family is generous." After the electricity was connected, you went back inside. Just as you entered, a piece of clothing flew at your face. Before you could figure out what was happening, you heard Zhou Yao say, "Put on your clothes now. What's the matter with you walking around shirtless?" At that moment, there were several scratch marks on your back, left by Zhou Yao last night. The village head and the electrician had both seen them, but neither said anything. However, you knew nothing about it. Strolling around shirtless, which made Zhou Yao so embarrassed he wished he could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. With outsiders around, he didn't dare bring it up. Not until you went up the mountain did Zhou Yao cover his burning cheeks and calm down for a while. Then he started to strip the bedding to wash. He moved the child's small bed to the yard, placed the child on it, filled a basin with water to wash the bedding. Just then, Zhou's mother came carrying a basket containing eggs and a small piece of meat. Zhou Yao saw his mother, quickly wiped his hands and stood up. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Zhou's mother carried the basket into the kitchen, her eyes sweeping over her daughter from head to toe. Seeing his ill-fitting, worn-out clothes, her eyes stung. She quickly looked away, picked up her granddaughter from the small bed, and said, "We just finished work at home. I came to see you." As she spoke, her eyes wandered around the 3 dilapidated thatched mud houses. In her heart, she was constantly regretting that she had agreed to this marriage. She had ruined her daughter's life. Yao, Mom has thought it over. If you really can't go on with him, then divorce. You're young, you still have a long life ahead. You can't be ruined by a scumbag like him forever. Hearing her mother's words, Zhou Yao was stunned for a moment. He sat on the stool for a long time without speaking. The day you took the money she had borrowed from her mother's house to buy rice cereal for the daughter and spent it on alcohol, she had really felt utterly hopeless. She felt that being with you, there was no hope at all. She even thought of death. At that time, she wanted to jump into the reservoir with her daughter. But after you woke up from drinking, you first slapped yourself remorsefully, more than a dozen times. Then, hurriedly went out to buy rice cereal for the child. In the past few days, she felt you had really changed as a person. You didn't go out carousing anymore, didn't drink, didn't gamble. Seeing her daughter with her head down, silent, Zhou's mother thought she was worried about the child. So she said, "If you want to keep the child, Mom can help you raise her together." But she hesitated. "If you stay home to take care of the child, it will be hard for you to remarry. In these times, divorces are very rare. No matter how bitter or hard life is, a woman has to grit her teeth and endure. Hearing that her mother had even thought about remarriage after divorce, Zhou Yao took the child from her mother's arms. Mom, I'm not thinking about divorce right now. He seems to be changing for the better. Look, she adjusted the child's brand new little clothes. He earned money and bought these for the child. He also bought me a set, but I didn't dare wear it. Zhou's mother saw the fair, young face of her daughter, blush with a long-lost glow. Her eyes seemed to light up again. She couldn't help but pause. She had overheard just yesterday, from the neighbor Amazi, that you owed someone 50 yuan. Such a huge debt. And you weren't doing proper work. How could you pay it off? That's why she was worried, and came early with things to check on her daughter. But seeing her daughter's expression, it didn't seem fake. Thinking that, she didn't tell her daughter what she had heard, afraid it would cause a quarrel. She collected her thoughts. Red-eyed, she nodded with relief. If he can change, that's good. Then I can rest easy. Saying that, she wiped the tears from her eyes. At this time, you were up the mountain, chewing on a coarse grain bun, calculating how much it would cost to build a two-story house now. Based on the current price of the dendrobium you could dig, after building the house, you would still have a savings that, by the standards of this era, would be quite substantial. After all, at this time, there weren't many 10,000 yuan households. Figuring that you'd probably have to stay in the village for at least the next 2 years, you wanted to improve the living conditions first. Now you lived in 3 dilapidated mud houses. Inside, you, with your height, felt you couldn't even stand straight. The room was dusty, bits of dirt falling everywhere. It was really no place for humans. At that moment, you had no idea that your mother-in-law was discussing divorce with your wife. If you knew, you'd probably lose all interest in going up the mountain to dig dendrobium. After all, being reborn, you knew making money was important, but nothing was more important than your wife and child. You had the money-making know-how from your previous life, so you weren't in a hurry for the moment. It was almost noon, and you hadn't even eaten lunch, rushing home, afraid that if you ate one more bite, your daughter would have one less. Zhou Yao couldn't stop you, so he took down the hanging meat in the kitchen, cut off more than half, and ran after you. Mom, take this back. Share it with my brother and his wife. Seeing such a big piece of meat, Zhou's mother kept shaking her head, refusing, afraid that if you found out she was helping her family like this, you would hit her daughter again. Even more afraid that her daughter would go hungry. We have enough at home. Look how skinny you are. You need to nourish yourself, or the baby won't have milk. In the end, Zhou's mother didn't take the meat. She carried her basket and walked away step by step. Zhou Yao stood at the door, watching his mother's figure grow distant, until she disappeared. Then he carried the meat back into the kitchen. Next door, Zhang Yulan was about the same age as Zhou Yao, but she had married 2 years earlier. Her skin was dark, but she married into the family 2 years earlier than him. His skin was dark, knowing on a raw radish in hand. Sister, you never go out all day. It's all over the village. Your second sister-in-law got straightened out by your second brother last night. Her cries were heard by several families. Zhou Yao walked out of the kitchen, sat down on a stool in the yard, responded half-heartedly every now and then. Zhang Yulan saw he wasn't saying much, pulled a stool and sat down in front of his washing basin, lowered her voice, said softly, "There's a rumor going around that your second brother's Daobao isn't your second brother's." When Zhou Yao heard this, he stopped what he was doing, looked up at Zhang Yulan. "Is it a grudge against your eldest brother?" Zhang Yulan saw the confusion in his eyes, stuffed the leftover radish into her pocket, leaned in with a gossipy tone and whispered in his ear. After hearing the whole thing, he was completely stunned. He couldn't believe there was such a thing. He used to respect that eldest brother of his, thought he was honest and steady, fair in everything, really acted like a big brother. But after hearing this, he felt a knot in his stomach. How could he do something like that? "Alright, I have to go home and fix dinner for my man. I'll leave you to it." Zhang Yulan seemed pleased with his reaction. She patted the young wife from the city. "That night you came back very late. When you returned this time, from a distance you saw the light on at home, and couldn't help but say to yourself, 'This electric light is indeed much brighter than a tallow lamp.' Zhou Yao saw you come back, quickly brought out the food and white flour steamed ones kept warm in the pot, set them on the table, casually asked, 'Why are you back so late today?' Noticed some dirt on your clothes, put down the dishes and reached out to brush the mud off you. You stopped her, turned around and bolted the main room door. Then from the pile of straw in the basket he fished out something, carefully placed it on the table. It was some wild dendrobium. I stumbled upon a little unexpected treasure on the way back." He didn't tell his wife that he actually slipped and fell before finding this thing. It took a lot of effort to climb back up. That's why he was so late. This stuff's price right now is no lower than dendrobium. Both are sold by the gram. It's a small windfall. You resolve to have a good time with your wife tonight and skip going to the mountain tomorrow. First go sell what you've got. Zhou Yao looked at the dark brown lump on the table, shaped a bit like ginger. I think I've seen something like this on a tree. She asked uncertainly, is this Wu? Her tone was full of disbelief. You didn't expect your wife to be so knowledgeable. Most folks in the village still don't know how precious it is. Otherwise, with all those treasures on the mountain, they would have been picked clean long ago. Dendrobia manhua will remain valuable for another 10 years or so. After that, cultivation techniques will improve, and they can be farmed artificially. They'll become common on the market, and won't be so rare. But even so, the price of wild medicinal herbs is still ridiculously high, because wild ones are practically impossible to get. You grinned, showing a mouthful of white teeth, pulled your lovely little wife into your arms, bowed your head and gave her fair cheek a small kiss. Meeting her bright eyes, you said, yes, it's Wu. Tomorrow I'll take you and the kid into town for a stroll. Hearing that you wanted to go out with the child, Zhou Yao's body stiffened, remembering what you said before, about selling your daughter to that childless couple in town. That memory still stunned. Who knows if they really can't have kids, or if they'd just buy her as a child bride. She broke free from your embrace. With caution and wariness, she refused. The girl is still young. I'd rather not go. You go wash your hands and have dinner. You could tell something was wrong with your wife. You had wanted to take her out for a change, and buy her some winter clothes. But seeing her on guard again, obviously afraid you had bad intentions toward the girl, all those nasty things you had done, it wasn't easy for her to let go of her resentment. Your trust was already spent. You could only take it slow. You took off your shirt, which had some mud on it, opened the door and went out to wash your face quickly. Came back in and sat down. Only then noticed the food on the table. A plate of golden scrambled eggs, and a small dish of leftover stir-fried meat from the morning. Had she not eaten any vegetables at noon? If she kept being this thrifty, when would she ever get plump? Looks like you have to earn more money fast, so she can feel secure. Wife, where did these eggs come from? Soon after you left, my mother came by. She brought them. Zhou Yao lowered her head and ladled you a bowl of batter soup. Not a word about her mother mentioning divorce. When you heard it was from your mother-in-law, you remembered the time you asked her for money to drink, felt too ashamed to face her, didn't ask what your mother-in-law came for. You thought to yourself, tomorrow after you sell your goods, you'll first repay the money you borrowed from your mother-in-law. You reached out and told your wife to sit down. Eat quickly, you said, handing her a mixed grain bun. Your wife still couldn't bear to steam pure white flour buns. She steamed buns mixed with half white flour and half coarse grain. You picked up a cornflour bun yourself, and wolfed it down. Zhou Yao took a small bite of the mixed grain bun, looked up and secretly studied the man in front of her. If only he could stay like this forever ... But she didn't know how long this warmth would last. As the two of them were eating, a voice called out from outside. Hey, Liuzi, come on out. We're one short, come drink and play cards with us. Zhou Yao heard that voice. Her face turned white in an instant. She stared straight at him, afraid that he would go back to his old ways, hanging out with them to drink and gamble. You froze for a moment when you heard the voice, then recognized who it was. You put down your chopsticks and looked up, saw your wife's pale little face, quickly stood up and pulled her into your arms, your voice full of concern and worrying. Zhou Yao held in your arms, her slender, fair fingers clutched tightly at the vest on your chest, her lips trembling slightly. Are you going to go drink and play cards with them again? Hearing this, you finally understood why she was like this. She was afraid you'd fall back into your old habits. You rested your chin on her soft hair, your arms unconsciously tightened, pulling her even closer. The body in your arms was terribly thin. Ever since marrying you, she hadn't had a single good day. Even a full meal had become a luxury. Yet despite all that, she still held on to hope for you, wanting to live a steady life with you. You took a deep breath, forcing back the heat in your eyes. In a low, hoarse voice you comforted her. Don't worry, I'm not going. I'll send them away right now. From now on I won't hang around with those buns anymore. Zhou Yao, still held sideways in your arms, after hearing your words, lifted her face and stared straight at you with a scrutinizing gaze, questioning, really, you won't go? You lowered your eyes, met your wife's uneasy, searching gaze. You wished you could show her your heart, tell her you truly reformed. Couldn't help giving the tip of her cute little nose another kiss. Exhaling a warm, clean breath, you assured her, don't worry, I'll make them leave right now. Then, you gently set your wife back down on the stool. All right, you keep eating. I'll be right back. You straightened up, noticed that your wife was still gripping the vest on your chest tightly. If you didn't know that those three guys outside were no good, you'd have taken her out with you, let her see you turn them down. To put her mind at ease, you lowered your head and kissed the top of her hair again. As a soothing gesture, your warm, rough hand gently patted her thin back. Only then did she slowly let go. You straightened up and strode out with confident, long steps. When you reached the yard gate, opened the wooden door. The few men at the door saw you come out. That one called her Liuzi grinned lewdly, spoke in a vulgar tone. Fourth brother. That's not fair, your sister-in-law just finished her month of confinement, and you can't even get out. Haha, it's been days. You haven't come drinking with us. Hearing that dirty talk, your sharp brows hardened. You roared, Cut the crap. From now on, keep your mouth clean when you talk. If you can't talk straight, shut up. The other two had been laughing along too. But seeing your face darken, they immediately wiped off their smiles. Quickly tried to smooth things over. Fourth brother. He's just got a foul mouth. Don't mind him. Come on, let's go have a drink. As he said this, he reached to put his arm around your shoulder. You raised your hand and pushed his arm away. Glanced at the other two out of the corner of your eye. If it's about drinking or gambling, don't come looking for me anymore. I'm out. The three of them looked at you as if they'd seen a ghost. They exchanged glances, looking at each other, completely baffled. That Liuzi still had a sleazy smile on his face, and kept teasing recklessly. Fourth brother, is the little sister-in-law keeping you on a short leash? Can't get out, since she's out of confinement. Come have a drink with us then. Before he could finish, you kicked him, right in the chest, knocking him flat on his back. He lay on the ground groaning. You strode over, and put one foot between his legs. Bent down, your eyes flashing with menace, staring straight at the bastard on the ground. Next time you spew shit from that mouth, also both your upper and lower lips shut, and break that third leg of yours. With that, you applied more pressure with your foot. Liuzi lay on the ground, forgetting the pain in his chest. He used both hands to push against your boot on his crotch, and wailed like a ghost. Fourth brother, I was wrong. I won't talk nonsense anymore. The other two were scared out of their wits by this scene, and couldn't speak for a long time. You radiated murderous intent, looking terrifying in the night. No one dared step in to mediate. They had all been scared of this guy since childhood. He fought with a ruthless, reckless ferocity. But tonight was the first time they saw him just get angry. And he seemed like a hungry tiger about to eat someone. Sent chills down your spine. You were afraid Liuzi would scream, and bring your wife out. You didn't want her to see you like this, in case you scared her. If this little trouble made her fear you again, you'd be screwed. You straightened up, looked down at Liuzi on the ground, took your foot back. Get lost. The two others, as if pardoned, quickly helped Liuzi up, and said to you, aha, fourth brother, we'll be going now. Once they were gone, you dropped the fierce attitude, walked back into the yard, bolted the gate. Inside the house, Zhou Yao had been restless ever since you left, sitting on pins and needles. Every minute felt like torture, seeing you hadn't come back for ages. Her heart almost turned cold. Even though her stomach was growling with hunger, she couldn't take a single bite of the steaming food without you. In just these few days, she'd watched you slowly improve. Unconsciously, hope had rekindled in her heart. She didn't expect you to become rich. She only wished for a stable life. But if you went back to drinking and gambling, what would she do? The baby was so young, she couldn't even bring her out. To work would she really have to divorce? As she was lost in thought, she heard steady footsteps. Her eyes unconsciously turned toward the sound, and saw your tall figure, walk in from the moonlight. At that moment, Zhou Yao's previously dull eyes suddenly lit up. He actually didn't go out messing around with those bums. She was still in a daze, when you had already walked up behind her. Bending down, you wrapped her in your broad arms, lowered your head and kissed her fair cheek. What's wrong? Your man only stepped out for a minute and you don't recognize me. As you spoke, you put the chopsticks in her hand, sat down at the table, picked up the cornflower bun, and started wolfing it down. Zhou Yao was still processing. She asked instinctively, really? You'll never hang around with them again. Reporting to the wife, I've cut ties with them completely. I won't play with them anymore. Zhou Yao finally nodded, and began to eat slowly and gracefully. During the meal, she kept stealing glances at her man, seeing you eat quickly, but with good manners. With your angular, handsome face, it was actually quite pleasing to watch. When she married you back then, besides the fact that you saved her life, part of it was because you were good looking. She had been captivated by your appearance, and on top of that, it was an exchange marriage for her brother. That's how she ended up with a poor man like you. Seeing your wife staring at you dazedly, you wondered what was going on in that little head of hers. You put a piece of golden egg on her bun, grinned and teased, eat up, wife. Later you can look all you want in bed. Your playful words snapped Zhou Yao back to reality. Seeing your cheeky expression, she shot you a sharp glare, then blushed, lowered her head, and ate quietly. After you were full, you didn't rush off. Instead you lounged on the stool in the corner, staring intently at your wife. The more you looked, the more you liked her. Even though material goods were scarce in this era, food was poor and there was no makeup. Her skin was still smooth and radiant, prettier than those actors with their injections. You noticed your wife's hand holding the chopsticks. Her knuckles were red, so you took her slender wrist and brought it up for a look. Remembering the sheets drying outside, you plan to sell your goods tomorrow, and get a ticket for a washing machine from the black market. In these times, many people didn't even know what a washing machine was. Even fewer were willing to spend money on one. With a washing machine, your wife wouldn't have to scrub clothes by hand. Zhou Yao pulled her hand back, feeling embarrassed under your gaze. If you're full, go heat some water and wash up. You're covered in mud. You stood up and kissed your wife's cheek, then went to the kitchen to heat water. After you left, Zhou Yao put down her chopsticks and touched her burning cheeks. Ever since last night, this man had been hugging and kissing her constantly. Every time you came close, she could smell the male hormones on you. Felt like a rabbit was hopping in her chest, her heart pounding wildly. She couldn't figure out what was happening to herself. After dinner, you pulled Zhou Yao to go for a walk. To help digest food, on the way back, you didn't head straight home. Instead, you turned in a different direction, to a rundown mud hut next to the cattle shed, with a simple earthen stove outside. The woman inside was coughing non-stop, clutching her chest. She took a small handful of cornmeal and mixed it with water. Put it into a chipped ceramic pot. Just those few steps had already made her face pale and covered in big drops of sweat, rolling down from her forehead. Just then, a half-gray-haired man strode over from not far away. Frowning, he took the ladle from her, told her to go lie down. He would cook. The woman looked at him. The man handed her half a flatbread he had traded for. Good luck today, I traded for a whole flatbread. I ate half, brought the rest back. Eat it quickly. Only then will you get better. Have you eaten? The man asked without thinking. He added some rice to the pot, squatted down and started the fire. I ate. The woman thought of her own health, pushed the flatbread toward him. I'm not hungry. You eat it all. It's been simmering for ages. I just want some thin porridge. The man tended the fire in silence. If I tell you to eat, you eat. How can you recover without food? The man kept his head down, his eyes stinging. If I eat my fill today, what about tomorrow? He didn't care about his own body. There was only that little bit of rice, which he had begged from several villagers. She felt sorry for him, working all day without eating. He also felt sorry for her, suffering with him in the countryside. He grabbed her hand. Don't think too much. Focus on getting better. I'll find medicine for you tomorrow. You'll be cured. Zhou Yao watched with a heavy heart. On the way back, she asked about those two. You remained silent for a while. How should you explain? You didn't know the man personally, but you had seen him on TV in your past life. The old man had been a powerful figure in business for years. After his death, he donated all his assets, in his wife's name, established a medical charity foundation. His lifelong regret was that he couldn't protect his wife, watched her suffer and die from illness. You guessed from memory that his wife's death was caused by this very illness, but you figured that her illness was mainly due to malnutrition in that drafty cowshed, and with nothing but watery gruel every day. Even a minor ailment could turn into a deadly disease. You plan to have your wife a high school graduate, take the medicine, food, and some money to invest in this future big shot. At least then you'd have a tutor for before the college entrance exam resumes. Early the next morning, before dawn, you woke up, quietly got out of bed, walked over to the small cot, carefully picked up your daughter, gently placed her beside your wife, covered her with the small quilt. After cooking breakfast for your wife, you locked the door from outside, and set out on the road. It was market day. Even though it was still early, there were already many people on the road. In those days, if a family in the countryside owned a 28-inch bicycle, that meant they were pretty well off. So, most people still had to rely on their own feet, using the memory of your past life. You found the relatively large Chinese medicine shop right away. The middle-aged man with a square face looked you up and down after seeing what you brought, then picked up the dendrobium and examined it carefully. Seeing it was wild dendrobium, with every root intact, he couldn't hide his surprise. He carefully placed the dendrobium on the counter and tentatively asked, "What price are you thinking?" You weren't shy about naming your price, and directly quoted a number. You knew he would bargain. Sure enough, when the pharmacy manager heard your price, he knew right away that you weren't easy to fool. He glanced at your carrying basket and invited you to the back courtyard. The two of them haggled for almost an hour. In the end, you sold it to stems of dendrobium. He knew this guy couldn't be easily fooled, glanced at your basket, then invited you to the backyard. The two of them in the backyard bargained for nearly an hour. In the end, you took to stalks of dendrobium. He sold a Polygonum multiflorum and some deer antler to him. You were quite satisfied with today's price. With 50 10-yuan notes in hand, you left the pharmacy. With money in your pocket, you went to the state-run department store. You wanted to buy a washing machine. One question to the sales clerk left you dumbfounded. You slapped your forehead. Although washing machines existed now, they were all for hotel use, not yet for households. The first domestically produced washing machine was in 1978. It hadn't been produced yet. However, you unexpectedly got a ticket for a 9-inch black and white TV. Without a second thought, you bought it. You also bought some stamps, meat coupons, and noodles. The profiteers saw a big spender and were especially warm to you. Hearing you wanted to buy a TV that very day, they helped find an acquaintance with a tractor. For 2 yuan, he could haul your things to the village. Without a second thought, you agreed. Then in the state-run department store, you bought your wife a thick red wool sweater, pants and leather shoes, and got a few brand new small clothes for the child. Also bought several new quilts. You purchased everything you could think of. It filled nearly half a trailer. The tractor driver was dumbfounded. Couldn't believe this young man in tattered clothes had so much money, buying so many things in one go. By the time you finished your big shopping spree, it was already afternoon. Meanwhile, at home, Zhou Yao woke up in the morning. The child was sleeping beside her. She didn't know when you had left. Zhou Yao dragged her heavy and sore body out of bed. She saw that you had gotten up early and had prepared the meals perfectly before leaving. On the table sat golden fried eggs and sizzling, greasy meat pieces. Zhou Yao admitted that she was moved. At about 5 a.m., Wang Shuanju led a delicate young girl Through the door, old fourth's wife. This is Li Tiantian, an educated youth from the city. She be staying at your place from now on. Tell old fourth, and clear out a room for her. Zhou Yao was momentarily stunned. Suddenly having this young girl in the house, how could they fit her in these 3 small adobe rooms? One room was for the couple. The living room was for eating. The other was piled with odds and ends. There was no room for her. The village chief isn't home. I can't make that decision. Wang Xuanzhu smiled so hard his wrinkles piled up, and waved at Zhou Yao. Didn't listen to her at all. He turned and gave a few instructions to the educated youth, then strode away. If it weren't for that guy, giving him that piece of meat, why would he send such a pretty young maiden to his house? This batch of educated youth coming down totaled over 20 people, mostly strong young men, only one delicate young girl, and he placed her here. The young couple lives here. Sending a girl here is crazier than sending a boy. That guy is at home in the evening, so nothing to worry about. Not worried about his pretty young wife being eyed by others. Li Tiandian, left behind, carried her canvas bag, and looked over these 3 shabby earth houses. Her heart sank. Life from now on would probably be harder than other educated youth sent to the countryside. Hong Mai was assigned to a family that seemed to be living comfortably. It was a middle-aged couple, with 3 kids, all dressed quite nicely. On the way here, she heard them say, the man of the household she was assigned to was no good, drinking, gambling, and beating his wife. The family was dirt poor, could barely afford to eat. Before coming, she thought they were exaggerating, but now it seemed they hadn't exaggerated at all. This housewife wore old, ill-fitting clothes, but she was fair and pretty, with delicate features like she stepped out of a story. Didn't look like a country person at all. Zhou Yao noticed that gaze, carefully sizing her up. She looked down at herself, wearing patched old clothes, then looked at this person, dressed in a fashionable cool summer dress, white socks and leather shoes, bright and clean. She pretended not to notice the scrutinizing look, and said, just have a seat. That room is a mess, full of junk. I'll have to wait for my husband to come back to free up some space for you. Saying this, she turned and went into the house, brought out a thermos and poured a bowl of water for the guest. Li Tiantian nodded awkwardly, and sat down on a stool in the yard. She was thinking, she had to find a way to quickly get a work transfer back to the city. She didn't want to stay in this lousy place a day longer, especially since she was staying in a house with a hooligan. She would have to be careful from now on, not to let this hooligan take advantage of her. Zhou Yao had planned to just throw together a simple lunch, but now with the new educated youth, she had to roll up her sleeves and start cooking. Li Tiantian thought since she'd be living here, she shouldn't freeload. So she washed her hands and went into the kitchen to help. Sister-in-law, let me tend the fire, she said as she entered the kitchen but froze. The old kitchen was actually clean and tidy, and a large piece of meat hung from the beam. Who said this family was too poor to open their pot? How can they afford meat if they can't open the pot? And such a big piece. Zhou Yao was busy mixing dough, and heard Li Tiantian's words. She looked up and said, no need for your help. If you have nothing to do, just help me watch the child in the yard. Li Tiantian nodded and left the kitchen. Went to the small crib, looked at the baby lying there, fair as a porcelain doll, cute and adorable. She bent down to play with the baby, wondering how the mistress was about the same age as her, and also fair and pretty. Why did she marry so early? How could she fall for such a useless man? And a hooligan at that. Maybe the hooligan forced her, and she had no choice but to marry him. Thinking this, Li Tiantian shivered. The more she thought, the more scared she became. She wondered if she should go to the village chief's house and ask to be reassigned, even if it was a poorer family, as long as the man was honest. In the kitchen, Zhou Yao was busy cooking. Little did she know what was going on in the educated youth's mind outside. A great delight. Soon, a bowl of hot noodles was ready. Zhou Yao brought the noodles out, called out, comrade, come eat some noodles first. Li Tiandian snapped back to reality, saw the noodles in a big bowl floating with oil, was startled for a moment. She quickly said, my name is Li Tiandian. Sister-in-law, just call me Tia. Tia. Zhou Yao nodded, and didn't say much more. Around 4 p.m., the tractor rumbled into the village, stopped at your door as you directed. Zhou Yao, who was shucking corn in the yard, suddenly heard commotion outside, quickly put down her work, stood and walked to the door, just in time, to see you nimbly jump down from the tractor. Her heart sank. How did he come back on that rumbling tractor? Before she could ask, the tractor driver shouted, young man, with so much stuff, can your house even hold it all? He then walked from the front to the back, carefully moved the TV aside, afraid of damaging it. In one leap, you lifted the TV off the tractor and onto your shoulder, making the driver grin and say, there's plenty of room for the future. Standing nearby, Zhou Yao was stunned by the scene, dazedly asked, did you buy all this? Her voice full of disbelief. So many things, plus a TV. How much money and how many tickets did that cost? Seeing your wife's fair pretty face, and her staring eyes wide, you walked over and touched her cheek, knowing she was worried about the money. But such small change meant nothing to you. You just wanted your wife to enjoy a good life with you from now on. Never let her suffer again. You leaned close to Zhou Yao's ear and whispered, I'll tell you later. Stand aside for now, so you don't get hit. Let me unload the things first. Zhou Yao heard you, and moved to the side like a puppet, watching as one item after another came off the tractor, piling up like a small mountain. She deeply regretted that she hadn't brought the child and gone to town with you. How much money was spent? How could he be so bad at managing money? At this moment, Li Tiantian, standing in the corner, holding the baby in her arms, stared fixedly at the tall young man, with broad shoulders and long legs. So he's the village hooligan. She had imagined he was ugly, crude and boorish. Never expected he had such striking features, deep-set eyes and handsome looks. In all her life, she had rarely seen such a handsome man. Her heart pounded and fluttered uncontrollably. Li Tiantian finally understood why Zhou Yao, such a beautiful woman, would marry so early. So this man was even better looking than Wang Din. In the movies, after unloading everything, you took 2 yuan from your pocket and handed it to the tractor driver. The driver took the money, waved and drove off. You started moving things into the yard. When your wife wanted to help, you refused. Told her to sit and rest. You completely didn't notice the extra woman in the house. Zhao Zhengxing came running when he heard the commotion. Saw the pile of stuff at his brother's door. Was stunned. This lazy bum. Where did he get so much money to buy all this? His family is dirt poor. They have nothing to sell. Did he sell the child? Thinking this, Zhao Zhengxing quickened his pace, rushed to the door, got a look at the little niece in the female-educated youth's arms, and felt relieved. Zhao Zhengxing didn't say a word, quietly helped carry things into the yard. Looking at that heavy iron lump, when plugged in, it showed pictures and sound. A bunch of ants fighting on it. So lively, like watching a movie. He curiously circled it a few times, too shy to reach out and touch. Heard this thing was precious, cost several hundred yuan. So this was what city folks called ATV. Never thought his own brother would bring one home. The only one in the village. After everything was properly arranged, Zhao Zhengxing pulled you aside at the gate, asked where you got so much money. You calmly patted your chest and said, I earned it all by hunting and selling the game on the black market. You didn't tell your brother about the dendrobium. Not that you didn't trust him, but dendrobium only grows on cliffs. Even if you told him, he couldn't help. If the news leaked, you'd lose your income source. When spring comes next year and it warms up, you'd take him and second brother up the mountain to find good spots. Teach them the tricks. After that, it was up to their own fate. Zhao Zhengxing wanted to advise you to just farm properly, but looking at his brother's shining eyes, that showed a shrewdness and depth you'd never seen before, as if he had become a different person. Even he, as the elder brother, felt. He didn't recognize him. You thought since your brother was here, you'd tell him about your plan to build a house, and asked for his help, offering him a daily wage of 1 yuan. Zhao Zhengxing took a drag of his cigarette and said, You're crazy. I'd work for free. Why would I take your money? But building a house is no joke. It costs a lot. Don't worry, big brother. I have money. I'll still pay you wages. Brother, settle accounts clearly. Please help me find a skilled craftsman. Use good materials too. I want to move into the new house before winter. Zhao Zhengxing nodded, thinking that old fourth just wanted to repair the 3 thatch rooms. Little did he expect, he had the audacity to build 2 stories. The reason you dumped everything on your elder brother was because you were extremely busy. You figured you needed to harvest all the dendrobium before winter. If you came across wild herbs like Polygonum multiflorum again, you could sell them for cash. And if you happened upon a sika deer, get some antler and deer penis. That would be a real bargain. Since it was still early, the 2 brothers decided to go find Wang Xuanju. In the planned economy era, you needed a permit to buy bricks for building. Wang Xuanju, as village chief, had absolute power in those days. You gave him a pack of Daqiaomen cigarettes and stuffed him a yuan. Smoothly got the brick permit. With the permit, you went straight to the commune's factory, ordered the bricks. Zhao Zhengxing was puzzled. How many bricks do you need? How thick are you planning to build the walls? Why order so many bricks? You told him you were building 2 stories. Zhao Zhengxing watched you pull out the 10 yuan notes, without even blinking, and hand them to the factory owner. He winced in pain, then heard you say, the rest will be settled when the bricks are delivered. Zhao Zhengxing's eyes widened, finding it unbelievable. Those were 10 yuan notes, not tissue paper. You just carried them loose in your pocket, not afraid of losing them. Zhao Zhengxing realized this former lazy gambler now had quite the air about him in front of others, more like a leader than the factory manager, standing there with an imposing presence. If he changed into a blue jacket without patches, people would believe he was some official's son, if not for the black mole on his neck and the scar from a previous fight on his hand. Zhao Zhengxing would suspect that old fourth had been secretly swapped. On the way home, Zhao Zhengxing was in a daze, feeling dizzy. Old fourth was still his old fourth, but something felt off. Near home, you pulled out 5 10 yuan notes from your pocket, handed them over. Big brother, other than the wood, please take care of sourcing the rest of the materials. Zhao Zhengxing reached out to take them, but felt his hands were dirty, wiped them on his clothes before taking the money. carefully tucked the money into his inner shirt pocket, afraid of losing it. So much money. You trust me. I'll make sure everything is done perfectly. You nodded. What's there not to trust about my big brother? If not for you and sister-in-law's help, my wife would have suffered so much last time. The baby might not have survived. Would have been lost to me. At home, Zhou Yao was looking at the things you bought. She took a square cloth from the cabinet, carefully draped it over the TV, afraid dust would dirty it. She thought, why buy this thing? The village had frequent blackouts, and you needed an antenna. When there's no signal, the screen is full of snow. But seeing how excited you were, she didn't want to complain about your spending. She found you had bought things for her and the baby again, including a women's sweater, pants, leather shoes, and several sets of baby clothes. Last time you went to town, you bought her a jacket. She hadn't even worn it yet, couldn't bear to wear it, and now you bought even more clothes. But seeing you care for her and the baby, Zhou Yao was still happy. She picked up the light, thick, soft quilt, about to put it in the chest. Couldn't help but shed tears. This was even better than the new quilt she had brought when she married. Everything was well arranged. Zhou Yao noticed you hadn't bought anything for yourself, but your shirt was full of patches, and your shoes even had holes. Li Tiantian was holding the baby, staring greedily at the new clothes, scratching her ears and cheeks, like a cat spotting a fish. That V-neck sweater was the most fashionable in the city. She wanted to buy it when shopping, but her parents wouldn't let her spend half a month's salary on a sweater. Seeing the clothes she wanted but couldn't afford, appearing here, and more than one piece. Li Tiantian was jealous and envious of Zhou Yao. Her husband was handsome, and spent generously on his wife, and he cared for her. When moving things, he wouldn't let her lift a finger. Afraid she'd tire, cherished her like the apple of his eye. How could the village spread rumors that he was a hooligan? It was complete nonsense. You walked in without much thought, saw a strange young woman, holding the baby, standing there smiling at your wife. Is this your friend? When Li Tiantian felt your gaze, she lowered her eyes, not daring to meet yours, although she considered herself a city girl, and looked down on country bumpkins. But ever since this man came back on the tractor, dusty and exhausted, though she had been standing right there, his eyes and heart were only for his sister-in-law, a living person right there. He never even glanced at her. Zhou Yao was busy with her tasks. When she heard your question, she realized there was an extra person in the house. That female-educated youth had been silent, and she was focused on organizing the things you bought, so she forgot all about her. Zhou Yao quickly apologized, took the child from Li Tiantian's arms, said to you, "This is an educated youth the village chief brought over. Says she wants to temporarily stay with us. What do you think? Should we clean out the west room and give it to her?" Her voice carried a tone of consultation. Although you said she was in charge at home, she still didn't dare decide alone, afraid of making a mistake, hearing a stranger was going to live with you. You unconsciously frowned slightly. You didn't want an outsider to intrude on your and your wife's cozy life, but seeing the hope in your wife's eyes, the refusal stuck in your throat. Afraid she'd think you were disappointed in her, you didn't say anything. First, you pulled your wife into the inner room, took off your outer coat. Then from a hidden pocket, you took out the money from selling dendrobium, handed it to her. Then you took the child from Zhou Yao's arms, teased the baby while telling her about your plan to build a new house. Zhou Yao took the money from you, looked at the stack of crisp new 10 yuan notes, could hardly believe it. After buying so many things, there was still so much money left. 2 stalks of dendrobium, 1 polygonum multiflorum, 1 polygonum multiflorum. And that dear antler and dear penis worth so much money. When you mentioned the idea of building a house, Zhou Yao quickly put the money away. Under your eager gaze, carefully hid the money in a cover-up, then fell into a brief silence. If we don't build a house, with the money earned these 2 times, it's enough for the 3 of them to live for several years, having ample food and clothing, a stable and peaceful life. But if we really build a house, this money is probably far from enough, and we do a mountain of debt. As for the younger brother from her natal family, he's helped our family a lot these past 2 years. Now they have a child to support. How can I be shameless enough to borrow money again? Zhou Yao was just pondering. You seemed to see through his thoughts. Suddenly gave a kiss on his fair cheek. Wife, don't worry about the money. I'm here. Just rest well at home. Don't tire yourself out. The sudden soft warm touch on the cheek made Zhou Yao's face instantly turn red completely. He glared at you with his handsome eyebrows. The young lady reminded, "What are you doing? There are still people outside. Aren't you ashamed? Your face is as thick as a copper wall and iron wall." You just grinned at Zhou Yao. In your previous life, you were worth a fortune. You've been to any occasion. Saying that, you bent down again, lowered your head and lightly bit on Zhou Yao's plump, rosy lips. Looking at your wife's fair face tinged with pink, your heart melted along with it. You're a mother now. How can you still be so shy? You stopped teasing him, got back to the main topic, said, "Tomorrow Big Brother will bring back the materials. if he doesn't have enough money, when he asks you for it, don't forget to give it to him. Zhou Yao silently nodded, but felt a little uncomfortable inside. He remembered what the neighbor next door said about Big Brother and second sister-in-law. When he saw Big Brother again, he felt uneasy. You noticed your wife's expression was off. Leaned close to his cheek and asked, "What's wrong, wife? Don't keep things bottled up inside." Zhou Yao thought for a moment, but still shook his head, didn't say anything. Seeing your wife didn't want to talk, you didn't. Press further. Over there, Li Tianyan stood in the main hall. Vaguely heard Zhou Yao's reminder, saying that there were still people outside. Her face was as red as a monkey's butt. She lightened her steps and walked to the middle of the yard, breathing fresh air. Somehow, she stopped her steps to go find the village chief, to change her accommodation. The male owner of this house does not seem as bad as the villagers outside spread. Just now when little sister-in-law was arranging the items, she was holding the child and standing right there. She saw it clearly. Most of those items were for household use, and clothes for the child and little sister-in-law. But she didn't see any men's stuff at all. While Li Tianyan was standing in a daze in the yard, the little daughter swaying in your arms had already fallen sweetly asleep. Her small face, like carved jade with gold, showed peace. You quietly turned around, gently placed the sleeping little princess on the bed, carefully pulled the quilt over her. Then Zhou Yao came out from the room, said to Li Tianyan, "Tonight I'm afraid you'll have to be wronged. Just make do for now. The west room has a lot of stuff piled up. Your big brother may not be able to clear it all at once." Li Tianyan heard Zhou Yao's words, turned her head, saw his cheeks flushed red. Couldn't help but think of just now, the faint conversation she overheard between the couple in the room. Her face felt hot, quickly averted her gaze from him. "No hardship at all. Sorry to trouble you and big brother. As long as you don't look down on our poor family." Saying that, she bent down, wanting to move her daughter's small wooden bed to her own east room. You, being strong, quickly rushed up to help. Zhou Yao smiled, turned and went to the west room, also wanting to help tidy up. Working bare-chested, you were repeatedly urged by your wife, so you had to put on a white tank top, the muscular, well-defined arms exposed, exuding a sense of strength.